together on the Facebook group. So we welcome all of your questions and participation, and especially your wisdom for the next hour or so. And hey, Poonam, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Parker. It's been a long day.
Yep, end of a day in the middle of a work week, but always this present moment, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you. How
So
has your day been?
it's been a beautiful day. I've spent a tremendous amount of time using technology since the quarantine, and I look forward to a nice technology detox one day. So uh, we're using an app inside this group right now, so we won't be able to tell who is asking the question, which is kind of nice. It'll just be anonymous questions from where we sit here. So let's move. I picked up some mail that we get, and there's some questions in here that I thought we'd get the conversation started with. How does that sound? Yeah.
And somebody said hello, so hello back.
Hey, I'm reading the right way. Hello. So here, one of the questions that we get, and I tried to kind of strain out the questions that are most, or the topics that are most frequent. Oftentimes the questions are different, but the topic is the same. So one is, if everyone is complaining and making their story all day long and you're with them all day long, what do you do with that? Do you say, is that so, all day long? Do you try to interrupt their complaining? Another thing that can happen, or so, which is sort of like fighting the complaining. So there's no dissipating or deconstructing or creating spaciousness there. Or do you walk away? Can you walk away from that? So, Poonam, what are your wise words on the topic of being around a person, a coworker, or now in quarantine, maybe a family member that builds stories all day long?
And by the way, it's Eileen that's saying hello.
Hey, Eileen. Hello.
Hello, Eileen.
She helped us out.
Tremendously.
Yes.
We're grateful
So,
for all the help, Eileen. Um, I feel it all. Ryan actually, after our session, our group meditation yesterday, I think he posted something about adult children. But the advice he gave, I think, is something that we can apply to any situation, not just adult children. I think he was trying to help Hindra. And he said, you have to surrender to what is. If that person is shunning us, we uncompromising, yes, surrender to what is, right? If
mhm.
they're complaining, surrender to what is. That is how, I mean, they're just repeating their conditioned patterns of the past. They haven't, they don't have enough, they're not generating enough presence power to overcome their conditioned pattern. And complaining
Yes.
is the easiest way. That's what Eckhart says. How do you feel?
So I think there might be even be a fourth one, which is we start complaining with them, which energizes mind activity in both people, and you can almost feel your energy drying up in that sort of atmosphere. But we don't have to call the complaining anything, and we don't have to fix anything for another person. We can be there with them. Remember the story is, I think it's in Awaken a New Earth. It might be his other book, The Power of Now. but it was in where the woman knocked on his door from the condo unit at midnight with a stack of papers about being sued, and he turned up the flame of his presence and just let her speak, so we're not judging a single word. We have no idea what the next word will be coming out of their mouth. We don't know what's going to happen next. We're just there moment by moment, and we feel and sense the spaciousness ourselves. I have experienced people just stopping their complaining with just spaciousness, or their chatter still continues, but it's not complaining anymore. It may be a little bit higher octave, which is positive, a more positive spin on their view. And we allow them to be. We just allow them to be. And there's nothing anyone else is doing that can touch that spaciousness unless our own active thinking mind is energized and triggered. So sometimes the step down, so we may have had a complaining mind ourselves, and it may be that that's just a thick pattern, but we're awake. We spend a good amount of our day sensing the spaciousness that's always there. And there may be still the mind that thinks, but there's not the same energizing. You can see that it's happening, and that's all we need to do in that case is just notice it. So the moment we notice the story in another person and we have an opinion on it, it makes it a fight, and we become part of that story. We become part of that energy field. When we can just drop it and have some levity around these things and lots of loving kindness that we can offer ourselves and everyone that's in that space. We know how it feels to be in a space of deeply unconscious and not deeply identified with the mind. We know how that feels.
I think the other factor in it is compassion, that the reason why they're complaining, what Eckhart says is complaining is the easiest way for a human being to put down something and feel better about themselves. The ego feels right in being right. So compassion, from that spaciousness comes compassion, that it's okay for this person to, in this moment, it's okay for them to complain, right?
Yes.
So that's what he said during School of Awakening as well. The complaining mind, the victim story is the most seductive story, that it's very easy, and it is so seductive and so easy to give into it, that it's very hard for the human to pull out of that story making mind.
Yes.
Of complaining. So it's the
Yes.
hardest thing to drop. Eileen said something. I used to always say, I'm sorry to hear that happen, or I'm sorry you feel that way, so that they knew I was hearing them. But I'd like to move on to, is that so?
Is that so? Yes. So let me see if I understand. Is she asking something? But I'd like to move to the is that so, old habits to break though. Is that so, or nothing? Now the complaining person may later come back to you, which has happened to me with more than one person. Is sometimes they say, I don't respond. You're not responding to me when I'm talking. At this moment, in those moments, I did not know I didn't have anything to add, and it's okay, because if they're going to make me a complaint as well, that's all right too. So I'd like to avoid I'm sorry, or you can notice it when you're doing it, and or not, and just say, is it so? So let's move on to another one. How about that?
There's another person online, Vade from California. Do they have questions? Eileen, you have another question? Since it's about everyone that's online right now, right?
It is. We'll invite in between topics any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm not seeing anything, but we'll keep watching that. Being and doing in presence. This is beautiful. This means that we can be at a party, we can be at work, we could be in a very mind energized space. We could be out to dinner with a group of intellectuals that have lots of interesting ideas. We could be around somebody having a pain body attack and still sense that spaciousness, that stillness that's ever present. That's our peace, and it's always there. So balancing being and doing. And sometimes if we may be in a conference room, for instance, or we may be at that party and we've moved so far outside and become so interested and attached to the conversation that's happening that we start to feel anxiety, and maybe in the form of excitement or just something that doesn't that where we're not sensing our peacefulness anymore. And then our mind, and it's the same energy that does this, wants to go and seek that peace out, and then it makes us even more anxious because we can't sense it. And this is usually the early stages of a meditation practice. This is a question that comes often from people. And what I like to do is to just pay attention to the sound of our voice, not their voice, our voice. How do we sound? And can we sense the spaciousness around our voice? And can maybe even step away. That helps in the very early days. Step away, move to a space where you're alone, and take some 3 deep cleansing breaths and sense your inner energy field, or sit down and feel the heaviness of your body or the seat underneath you, and that'll bring you back in. If that's our primary purpose, eventually it shows up all the time, and we can never be depleted of energy where we're in or reactivity, never be part of the reactivity that may be around a situation or a person or a conversation. How do I get past the need to belong? I feel this pain in my body, and at times I had to walk away and do some breathing. Thank you, Tina. The need to belong. So Tina, is there a sense of separation? And what is the energy field around that longing? Is it a feeling of not wholeness? Because if we are in touch with what is central, what is deep within, what's always present, it's like the fish asking where the water is. If we are in that space, there's never a time when we're not part of the whole tapestry. We're not separate from it. There's not a them and then me. So there's a dialogue oftentimes that goes on in this kind of a pattern of feeling like we're not like other people. We don't fit in. There's not a group for us. And that's a wonderful place to be, because you get to sort of sculpt your whole feeling of isolation. You get to sit in that experience and then sculpt a completely different view and perspective from that stillness, where you know that there is no one separate from you. There is nothing separate from us. that space consciousness that you experience is the same space consciousness that's in all beings. And whether or not we're awkward, or whether or not people understand us, or whether or not people are critical, leave them alone. Leave other people alone. And you can leave this voice alone too. You can see it as it comes up, and then experience the reality of that spaciousness, knowing that everyone has access to that spaciousness, and that anything that a group of people could feed to you would only be enhanced when you're not grabbing from them, when you're not grabby, when you're not needy for that connection. Yeah.
What I would say, and this is something that I've learned from Eckhart, and is like the most profound lesson, that every human being comes from, when they're born, they come from a sense of lack and incompleteness. And you'll see that phrase, lack and incompleteness, I am not enough, a lot in the New Earth. Um, I think it may be in the Power of Now as well. So when we are experiencing, and why are we experiencing the lack of incompleteness? Because we are not aligned with Source. The deepness in our inhabiting our body and being into our presence is not there. And then we are out of our body. And because we are out of our body, we're looking for something outside of ourselves to fulfill us. So that is the I want to belong. And it can also happen. I think in A New Earth, he says in chapter 6 on triggers, that if you've been abandoned as a child by your parents, then that approval, like our parents should have taught us how to develop presence, and our parents didn't do that. And especially if you are like a baby boomer or a Gen Z, then most parents of that generation, which is Eckhart's parents too, and I kind of have a bond with Eckhart because his parents, his dad was like my mom, so I kind of know that explosive anger that his dad had is what my mom had. So parents don't give appreciation and approval. They don't look at the child and go, my body lights up when I see you, right? So we are left with an emptiness. We are left with, oh, nobody loves me, nobody likes me, right? And so that belonging, that sense of belonging starts with that abandonment, that sense of the underlying limiting belief is a sense of abandonment, that, hey, these people abandoned me, nobody loves me, and so now I need to belong. And then the wanting urge starts, and that's the pain. The pain is your disconnection from inhabiting your body. The more we inhabit our body, that's why the breath work is so important. That's why the inner body meditation, we do that divine love meditation, which is actually an inner body meditation. So the more we are in the middle of this pandemic, the inner body meditation, that's why it was repeated a couple of times during our group meditation. So come join us during group meditation, and maybe we can make a little bit of a difference, right? Help you inhabit the body, because that the energy field of the collective presence of the group, it like grounds everyone. There are so many people that have responded that they felt really grounded. Eileen is one person that always says group meditation grounds me. So come join us for group meditation. Continue your practice. Do your presence practice. Do your meditation. Do your breath work, do your inner body meditation. Eckhart has provided free meditation resources. We have it on our YouTube channel, right, Parker?
Yes,
So,
and we will put the link to the next meditation. It's always pinned at the top of the page, at the top of the group page. and we'll put the link to the YouTube channel. So we've gotten a few comments in, so let me go over them, Nina. Yes, authentic alignment is where we discover true abundance. Great. Eileen said, I find presence practice easier as myself without the added distraction of others. But then my relationship with others have improved since letting them go. Beautiful, no grasping, just be myself. Then for those that are there, when they're there, I'm present and more peaceful. I don't need them, but I totally get the question and struggle from before my journey through this. Eileen, myself as well, so it seems to be common. When I was in my dark night of the soul before experiencing Eckhart's work and other teachers now, that was my primary storyline. It was that I was different from other people, that I was separate, and I wasn't understood, and it caused a lot of suffering, but it brought me to a place of not suffering. That suffering brought me to peace. So as many people have, and I'm sure there's people here as well. So where can I join? I answered that. And then someone said, I agree, parents can be physically there, financially there. However, it's so critical that parents awaken to a child's spirit, soul, and presence. Yes. Yes. I host meditation in virtual reality, and there's many children that come to these meditations that have such a clear and pure presence that I didn't experience other children or myself with that quality of peacefulness at all as a child. So I know that we've come a long way, and it's really beautiful. So, yes, Susan.
In that aspect, Eckhart says that the gains in consciousness. So, people in the 20th century probably were more unconscious than the people born in the 21st century, right? The same thing with the 19th century, mid 1990s, something around that time. So it seems like children are all the more, the gains in consciousness are always there. That the younger children are more awakened. Like, when the mass shooting happened in Florida, there were so many children, high school children, that became activists for gun control. And it's like 17, 18-year-olds. It was amazing to see that they had the level of compassion. So,
and we have to keep in mind, I mean, we only very recently acknowledged childhood. I mean, it used to be less than even 100 years ago. If you had children, the more children you had, the more workers you had for your farm, or that could go out in urban areas and shine shoes and make money for the family. Childhood wasn't acknowledged, and there's still places on the planet where a childhood is not acknowledged. So nurturing these little souls as they come into this world so quickly in these few generations is great. I keep touching my face. I'm aware that I am also touching my face, and that they don't want me to do that. The people don't want me to do that. So this is a wonderful topic. Let's see. So that was balancing being and doing, and separation and duality. We get a lot of questions about that are under the topic of surrendering. So surrendering to big and small situations, and allowing life to teach us through that surrender. So Eckhart's words on this is to learn to surrender to the little things that aren't exactly the way we would want them to be. By surrender, it means that we accept it completely because that is what is. And we sometimes there's like this misunderstanding that it means that we take no action, that there's nothing, that if we surrender, that we become doormats, and that's okay too. What's wrong with being a doormat? We just, when we surrender, it means we lay down the story. We lay down in any judgment or any story making about a person or a situation, and we sit. And if we don't have the answer at that moment, still sit. Just keep sitting. And whatever our next action will be, it may be to solve the situation, it may not. We just move, we just take that action when it comes to us, and be okay with sitting in stillness until the action or the clarity arises. It, we were talking about this the other day. It used to be in large corporations, the CEOs, they were, a big hierarchy was set up and they were building the companies. And now a lot of the tech CEOs that I've met or that I've read stories about, they have many assistants, not one, they have many, 6 or 7. And their job is to solve things that no one else can solve, or that no one else can seem to solve. These are solutions that are found beyond the thinking mind. And so they go into their offices, sometimes they keep them dark, and they meditate. This is happening a lot, and they find creative solutions, or they not find them, the creative solution comes to them. So surrendering to the bigger stuff, as Eckhart says, becomes much easier if we are able to surrender to the small stuff. And if we're surrendering to a situation that feels unacceptable, then our first action is stillness. Yeah.
And I feel surrender is experienced when we can recognize from presence the resistance that is arising. And one of the things that he talks about, there's a bonus section in Conscious Manifestation course, if anybody has taken it. It's on self-limiting beliefs. There are certain beliefs that we are not even going to know, like they're not expressed in words. They're seated somewhere at the cellular level of our soul. Like he says, something like your mother may have said, "You're a loser," and it's seated in the cellular level of your soul. But right now, you're not able to consciously manifest, right? Because that limiting belief, that energy formation, thought forms are what we need to realize is thought is energy. Emotion is a little bit more denser energy than thought forms. Formlessness, presence is pure positive, like think of it as transparent, invisible energy. So you're becoming thicker, like you're thinking a thought, or maybe it is saved at a memory level in your energy body, that thought, I'm not good enough. So when we are presented by a challenge and this resistance is arising, what is the thought formation that is preventing us from surrendering to this present moment, right? That's why he has so many ways on dropping the resistance. Like he says, act as though you chose it. Accept this present moment as though you chose it, right? Like if your house is burning, you chose your house to burn down. At this moment, can you accept that you chose that your house is burning down and that is okay? If you're falling sick, then choose that you are choosing that you need to fall sick at this moment. And that the choice, the fact that we know, we understand that from a limiting belief we co-created this present moment. Like, it may be that what is the challenge these days? Toilet paper. We chose the challenge to go to 6 places, that we have to go 3 times a week or 4 times a week to the grocery store at 8 a.m. in the morning when the grocery store opens. We chose that challenge, right? And in that acceptance, you'll see that the day that you go at 8 a.m. and that resistance of the mind is not there towards, why am I going 3 times a week to go look for toilet paper? Just surrender that, yes, at this moment, when I go to the grocery store, I'm not going to find all the things that I need to cook this certain meal. I'll have to go tomorrow. I'll have to go day after tomorrow, right? Surrender to it.
Yes.
So that resistance is what we need to recognize, and that's why that high vibrational frequency of presence is needed, because any drop, like a little bit of drop, is resistance. Because I love what Abraham Hicks uses this word called high flying disc. When we are in presence, we are like a high flying disc. Everything is joyful. Whatever, if there's a spill, we are joyful. Yes, this is spilling all over. The water is spilling. The tea fell, the cup fell. I love cleaning this table, right? So
Yeah.
it's like joyful when we are tuned in, tapped in, turned on. Everything is joyful. Like, there's a big mess on the floor. Yes, I'll go mop that mess, kind of joyful, right? So when we are not joyful, and that's what Eckhart says, 3 modalities of awakened doing: joy, enthusiasm, and acceptance. So if you're not in joy, then we are not in presence. And the moment we don't have presence, we are in a state of resistance. Non, that's why non-resistance, non-judgment, non-attachment are the 3 main things that are needed for enlightenment. And that non-resistance needs to be recognized, that, hey, right now my mind is creating resistance. Why is there a huge spill? Why is my child not falling asleep? I've already had a 16-hour day. My child doesn't want to go to sleep. Your child is just saying, come lie down beside me and spend some more time with me, mommy or daddy. Please come. I
One
need
thing,
you right now.
yes, yes. It's lovely how you can shift the perspective of what anything that we're doing. If we can't be doing something with joy or with lightness, then stop. Eckhart says, stop what you're doing. Just stop. And the other thing I want to say is the sickness. There are people that are experiencing sickness, and I loved what Eckhart said about, we don't even call it sickness. What is this moment? What's the makeup of this moment? At this moment, I'm feverish. At this moment, it's difficult to breathe. At this moment, my head hurts. At this moment, so instead of we calling it something, we just drop it altogether. We have some more. We have a few questions here. When encountering an unconscious person, which is my case, which in my case is my neighbors, when face to face with his abusive language, threats, anger, and judgments, how do you respond or act to dissolve the situation? So we could tell you what to say, but really your impulse and your clarity, the amount of peacefulness that you have will determine what it is that you say and how you are able to support that situation. Don't, we did a video called very early on called Leave People and Situations Alone. Just leave them alone. They may be right. We don't address their energy field or the reactivity in them. You may listen and there may be something in there that you can do. What is it that they need? But we don't need to It's not pacifying them or trying to calm them down. It's just offer, listen intently without any judgment. And it's like I've noticed that deeply unconscious people, it's sort of an immaturity in their energy field. It's like an immaturity. And so we offer them lots of space and compassion. So when you're face to face, if they're right there with them, face to face, we don't know what they're, Putnam and I can't say what it is that is has happened in this situation. What we can say is that you don't need to be triggered, which means to be any magnetized by 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 this reactivity in them. You can let people's reactivity just be their reactivity, and it doesn't have any effect on you whatsoever. It's certainly not a place to solve a problem. So I would, if I were around somebody that was threatening, I wouldn't solve the problem right then. I would offer them spaciousness, and if they were able to move out of their reactivity, I may have a conversation. But um, whatever situation we find ourselves in, that's what we need. So that is your teacher in that moment.
What I would say is, if we have the judgment, right? My neighbor is abusive or threatening. Look, and it's back to the limiting belief. Look back in your childhood. Who yelled and screamed at you? And you know what happens with children is, we are told, at least my generation, we were told to shut up and just feel, I mean, suppress our emotions, right? Don't cry, don't say anything back. And coming from East India, if your mother was screaming at you, you could never say anything back. Like, you couldn't retort back, right? There's no answer back. So look in your childhood as to who you felt that much resentment towards, that you couldn't say anything when they were threatening you or yelling at you. That may be your limiting belief. That resentment is still carrying back to the energy. You know, all these are dense karmic accumulations. We've done a video called What is Karma? And in there, Eckhart speaks about, this is your past conditioning, your conditioned past pattern, that, hey, I used to get angry as a child. Now anybody that comes across my path, if they yell and scream at me, I'm going to resist it. I'm going to feel horrible about it. The whole body energy is like, you know, you can feel that aggression, like the anger coming up in you, that this person is abusive. So one, what I would say is, go back in childhood and forgive. Forgiveness is the biggest step to step out of that karmic law. And nobody can act beyond their level of consciousness. That neighbor cannot act beyond their level of consciousness. If they are that unconscious, acceptance, surrender to the fact that that is who they are, right? They are going to be that threatening, angry person. The other thing is what is the vibrational energy in us that is that low frequency of anger that is attracting? So negativity, somewhere Eckhart says, are you polluting the world, or are you cleaning up the mess, right?
Mm.
So is there negative energy in my energy field? Anytime I experience something, that somebody yelled at me, or in the office there's too much noise, I immediately go downstairs and do a 20-minute meditation, and I come back up and I stay, like, I put on some uh, music that is that'll ground me, and the whole room will come down. All the noise of each person yelling at each other, whatever they were doing, they don't do it to me, but they're doing it around me, right? And we are like now in corporate America, there's this open concept. We are not behind closed office doors and no cubicles. So it does affect you. The room affects you. So you just bring it down. And it is incredibly amazing the power of presence, the power that you can control, like as you raise your vibrational frequency, that whole room, the anger comes down.
And a place you can slip off. So you're like, look, it's happening. But if your mind starts making congratulations that it's happening or doing it because it wants that to happen, it won't happen because it's still not, you want something different than what is. So it's absolutely acceptance. The other thing I want to add is I spent a lot of time unconscious, most of my life, completely unconscious and angry and a victim, and this person's doing me wrong all the time. I always had a drama or story. And we can, if I can remember one person who offered me that spaciousness. And I remember how wonderful it was for me to experience that. So it may feel, the ego mind will be like, that's it. That's it. This person's diminishing me. It's not diminishing you at all. It has nothing to do with you. Leave them alone. Let them have their episode. And someone said limit engagement. You may limit engagement. You probably will if you're operating in spaciousness, which means that your complaining mind doesn't need any management because it's basically not there very much. Then we just drop it. We just drop the story, and we are able to bring levity. There's a certain levity, a natural levity. We could fake it. You could fake it. You can say, well, I think I should act this way, and turn these like deeply liberating teachings into a belief system that you're going to execute through behavior. It won't work. People sense your energy field as you walk into the room before our mouths even open. And we can let them have that. It doesn't, just because someone's saying something angrily and it seems like it's conviction, doesn't make it true. In fact, the more there is to something, probably, the less open it is. And then naturally levity comes to the situation. The person just lays it down. I just want to say something about trauma, because like this morning, we did a large conference, and it was on the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system and what happens with trauma and what animals do with trauma. And I thought I would share it. Is that okay, Poonam? Yes. So it's they were, about the flight or flight. I'm sure many of you do fight or flight, and this affects our nervous system. But what happens is, like let's say a little bunny, for instance. A little bunny is hopping through the field, doesn't have big fangs, or especially it's not. There's a predator comes and gets it, and it freezes. It freezes, right? That's a response, because it feels that it can neither escape and it cannot fight, and so it freezes up and it plays dead, and then the predator takes it back to its den or whatever, and then as soon as to eat later, and then the bunny gets up and hops away. But what does the bunny do? The bunny convulses. That's what animals do after that. It's shaking. It shakes off all of that energy, all of that tension and anxiety. But we as humans don't tend to do that. We hold it in. And so now here we are awakening, still in these bodies that oftentimes have this whole DNA and makeup of experiencing trauma of different, especially the generations that are so close to waking up, or that are waking up today. There's a residual there. And we offer that same gentleness that we would with an angry person to ourselves if we sense that there's reactivity or something that's magnetized by this stored up, tension that happens in a human body. I envision like how how all of that has sort of, and then that it contributes to the mind patterns and these unconscious mind patterns that, keep us in this unconscious karmic, in these unconscious karmic patterns. I recommend shaking and dancing. Qigong is all about that, shaking it off. When I leave a meeting, I always shake it off. I may look crazy, but that's okay. I'm shaking it off anyway.
That's what Eckhart calls the ducks flapping their wings. Always flap your wings. That's the story he wrote in the New Earth.
Do you
right?
do you shake or dance or anything when you leave
Or I go for a walk.
Yes.
Nature ministers to our soul, so go for a walk in nature and do a little bit of a brisker walk, and that'll shake off the energy.
You could shake. Yes, walking, yoga, which is wonderful. Any kind of stretching moves it out, but lovely. Okay, are there more conversation? Let's surrender, practice grace. Yes, yes. Look at you, beautiful people. Only of surrendering or acceptance, move past resistance, move are yourself in the present moment. Yes, yes. Look at this wisdom happening in this thread right here. Yes, true. My mother was very controlling, and when this man verbally attacks, I stand in fear, saying nothing but wishing he would get bored and go away. A number of times he takes my non-reaction as being sarcastic and then threatens physical abuse.
The threatening of physical abuse happened because you were in fear. You have to sit in presence at that time. I mean, sit or stand in presence. So the fear is attracting negativity, and that's what it's electromagnetic frequency, energy, emotions, and thoughts are energy formation. So your fear is attracting the abuse. Like
And wishing he would get bored and go away is resistance, right, Poonam? So we have to look at those things, because if we want to be liberated from them, and if we don't look at them, there's nothing out of order, all in its own time. But if we want to have a different way of being in the world, it will affect the quality and kinds of interactions that we have.
Give them your presence. Like Byron Katie was at one time a person held a gun to her stomach, right? And so she was like, why would I miss this moment? Why would I miss this present moment where I can see this guy? I can see the frightened eyes of that man. So it's like, why would you miss the moment of being with this neighbor? Right? So be with this neighbor. Feel like, look beyond their anger, look deep within. They are the same essence as who we are. So look at the depth. Search for the depth in that person and say, I love that depth. And the moment you say, I love that depth, all this goes away.
And I also recommend, if you're not part of a presence practice group, to put some people around you that are also growing in this way. And see, you can learn a lot by watching people in those circumstances as well. There's a lot of pain body attacks going on right now, and we don't need to identify with them or decide that they're true. And if there's something to be truly afraid of, you'll just get up and move away. You have to trust what flows through you. If you're in alignment, then trust what moves through you. Then you will be moved to leave the situation. Maybe you might just turn around and leave. It's not accept the situation. If I walk away, it means I don't accept it. It means just to allow the situation to be as it is, and to say yes to the situation as it is. It doesn't mean that we don't change it. Okay. Yes. And I think you'll notice that that happens less and less, or not at all, the more we create space consciousness. So we can go ahead and die anytime we want. We'll be okay. We can die before we die. Yeah, a lot of these questions are around dissolving the pain body or living or working in a toxic environment. Well, do we have any more questions today? We're here for 50 minutes. I wanted to show everybody my singing bowl, so I'll give anyone that wanted to come and ask a question a few minutes here while I show you this beautiful gift that came. I'll show it to you in two parts. So it's this beautiful bowl. Wait, which way? The camera is backwards from Zoom, so I need to remember and look at the bottom of it. Wait, from the inside. It's so beautiful. So this is for the group. I'll play it. I wish y'all were here. I'm sure the sound is a little bit compromised on the microphone, but it's such a beautiful sound here, and I'm glad I can share it with all of you. Okay, something else came in. Being an empath, I absorb it all. No amount of grounding or spiritual protecting myself helps. I'm part of a beautiful, loving group. True, I could leave, but I love gardening and I'm in my own space. It's hard. Thank you for your wisdom. I'm not sure what this question is. No
It may
amount.
be the same person that asked the previous question, because you said you could leave. So they're saying they're actually gardening. I'm hoping I'm understanding it correctly.
What is an empath?
It's a person that absorbs everybody else's energies. Like if somebody was feeling sorrow, they start to feel sorrow. Like in Star Trek, there was a empath. She could pick up the emotions of others, right?
Okay, now I understand better. No amount of grounding or spiritual protecting myself helps. I'm part of a beautiful, loving group. Okay. I guess I don't see the question here. I think they were just sharing. Because no amount of grounding or spiritual protecting myself helps. Helps what? With being an empath?
The one thing I would say is even there's a video. I don't remember if it's chapter 3, 4, 5 of New Earth webcast, where one woman says, when she calls in to Oprah and Eckhart, she says, "I'm too sensitive." every sound bothers me, everything bothers me. How do I get rid of that? And what Eckhart says is even saying you're sensitive is an identification. So
Yeah.
even saying I'm an empath, you're identified with being an empath. So you're that intention of being an empath is making you absorb everyone's energies. Once you drop that identification, that label, you're giving yourself a label. Different people give themselves different labels. Like somebody will say, I'm a mother. So they're being a mother to everybody, like mothering, scolding children in Walmart, scolding children in Target, right? When children are not, so they were still, or a teacher is still playing their teacher role in Walmart and trying to train whatever the child is not behaving properly, or at a restaurant, they're trying to correct the child. So the being an empath, that's why when we are in presence, no labeling. It's very good to sense everything without any words or labels. That's
Yes.
a sense perception. Meditation on sense perceptions. Don't label anything, just
I've no,
perceive.
yeah, I've noticed that people that grew up in houses or were in abusive relationships, they become hyper vigilant to other people's moods, right? Which most of that is unconscious, and so they're always sort of picking up on what everybody else is doing. I'm not sure if that's the same thing. But we can pull all of that attention away just by noticing that it's not our business what other people are doing or thinking or where they're coming from. If it's amazing how peaceful our experience of life becomes when we leave other people and situations alone, right? Allow people to do that. If we are stepping in because we want to make them feel better or correct them, then the impulse is to change something, and that is opposite of presence and stillness. We bring it home, bring it home, bring it home, bring it home. It's not complicated, and it's not hard. It's not hard. A lot of people ask about coming into presence, and it's to meet ourselves where we're at all the time, and a willingness to stay authentic about each moment, to not be sort of ahead of ourselves, or to not create it into another doing, right? It's like, this is a big one. Okay, here we're back to the topic of belonging. Let's read it together, Poonam. Thank you so much for discussing belonging. I've had a difficult childhood. My stepdad never wanted me, and my mom was absent and also abusive whenever we did interact. So I understand that my need to belong stems a lot from that. My need to belong in my partner's family unit is bringing a lot of emotion and pain to the surface. His family has made comments to say that they are glad we won't be moving in. It has been clear that they have no interest to talk to me when I'm there, and I feel so hurt. How can I move past this and be around them again without this attachment I have to feeling wanted to belong? I don't feel part of this family, but I can see that this is something I need to work on myself. Thank you. First of all, look at all of this awareness, Poonam. That's a lot of awareness to see.
That's what I was smiling at.
Yes,
There is awareness there.
you're 90% there. Here's my
Winner.
dog. I'm going to mute that.
Since Parker is trying to get control of Kumar, what I would say is the words that say his family has made comments to say that they were glad we won't be moving in. It has been clear that they have no interest to talk to me. So one of the exercises in I don't know which chapter it is, in chapter 7 or 8 of A New Earth, is allow the diminishment of our ego. So the more we allow the diminishment to happen, Somebody says, I don't want you here. That's okay. It is okay. What the resistance that is arising is the ego, the mind, identified mind coming in and saying they're rejecting me, because we already have a rejection, right? From the father, what does it say? My stepdad never wanted me. So the father saying, no, I don't want you. The mother being abusive. So kind of like in her language of being abusive is saying, no, I don't want you. Right. So each human being that is saying no, the spiritual lesson in that is that person is saying, at the vibrational level, you're not aligned with beingness. Go search your beingness. You're okay in your own solitude. That's what each person is saying. So the stepfather gave you that lesson, the mother gave you that lesson, we didn't listen to that. Now the partner's family is giving you that lesson. Listen, the fullness and the joy of being is within us. We don't need a family, we don't need a mother, we don't need a father, we don't need anybody. The happiness and joy that arises when we are aligned, I call it, the Sufis call it my beloved, right? My beloved is being in this state of bliss. When I'm alone in my meditation, I'm the most blissful. When I'm doing things all alone by myself, whether I'm doing dishes or cleaning the kitchen, blissful, total bliss, right? So that's what they're saying. The spiritual lesson is go find your alignment. You're down here with judgments, resentment, and this vibrational frequency, and your inner being sources here. So raise your vibrational frequency. The moment you come into presence, the world will love you. The world will love you. You won't even realize, somewhere in The Power of Now, he says, whatever the ego wanted, the ego gets when the ego is no longer there, right? All this love and affection and joy. I know Parker must be experiencing it. I mean, the past 5, 6 years, the amount of love and joy that I have followed this path, the amount of love and joy and appreciation and true relationships that I've had in the past 10 years. I've not had that all my childhood, maybe a couple of best friends or something, right? That are still my best friends. But the past 10 years, the appreciation, like even the grocery store clerk will look at you and just smile. And you're like, why the dry cleaner lady will come running and give you a hug, because they can feel it. They can feel the joy of presence, right? When they're seeing you.
Or you're leaving
So
them alone. You,
practice, practice,
yeah.
practice. Do your presence practice and get into alignment.
Let's move to that last piece, though, Poonam. How can I move past this and be around them again without this attachment I have to feeling wanted, to belong? Well, first, I want to say you're 90% there because you can see the attachment and you can feel the reactivity of the rejection of like they are rejecting and there's reactivity to that, or feeling like that there's something might be wrong with you. So it's triggering some thought processes there, some story building there, and you can deconstruct this whole thing by just leaving the situation and these people. You expect them to do nothing other than how they do, and it's okay. You don't want them to don't you don't need them to like you. You don't need them to approve of you. They don't need you to approve of the relationship, and you don't need them to think that you're a success or a failure. It doesn't matter. Let them think as they think and do as they do, and not because you should, but because that is as it is. And your first concern, your first focus is to sit in that stillness, to touch that peacefulness inside you, and allow anything that's going on out here, any chatter that's going on in your mind while you're in their presence, You just notice it and return to that spaciousness again and again. And who was that? I love for to know how they do in a few months. Yeah.
I hope you'll join back and report back. Hey, I did some presence practice, and this is where I am now. I allowed my ego to be diminished, and I had a wonderful relationship with my neighbor. He finally sees my point of view and see the goodness in me. Right?
Yes.
We
And
are
this,
all luminous stardust beings. We have to realize that each and every one of us, in our essence, is infinite potential, and that's where we need to be in
mm-hmm.
our invisible formlessness. Presence. Presence is the key. Just like this little one is saying, presence is the key. Look at me.
Tiny baby. There's a little boy who comes about once a week and he picks grapefruit and oranges and lemons to sell. And he has me down as, I think, a regular customer now because he's been sort of pacing in front to sell us. I think he's got grapefruit today. So Kumar had to give him a greeting, and all he has is his bark. So I thank you all for remaining spacious. So Kumar barked earlier. Right, Kumar? He gives y'all a little kiss too. Mm-hmm. Put him down. So there we have it. That's a night. We'll have to do this again. What do you think, Puna?
Most
Oh,
definitely.
I had a nice time. What's great about this is we can add as many people as we want and go live. So if there's particular teachings or sharings that we'd like to add, we can do that here.
Or maybe we can ask Ryan to join.
Yeah, that's true. I remember the first time I met Ryan. I'll share this with you. We were at the Eckhart Tolle. It was years ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, at an Eckhart Tolle meeting and around the group. And he was so present. His eyes were huge almost. And he was sharing about how he was learning how to be in traffic, how he used to be very reactive in traffic, and how once he accepted the traffic for what it is, how he was able to see so much more of it. And he would say, sitting at the light, and he was like, oh, now all these beautiful people get to go. And whereas before he would be like, yeah, look how much traffic. Ah! Right, getting very upset about the traffic. And I love that story. It's like anything else that we let go of. It's like we form this story, and then as soon as we can let go of it, we suddenly are able to see so much more that's also going on, so many different perspectives, and we see how crazy and insane it is to have these fixed opinions about anything or to think we know like how something's going to go. So anyway,
Before we go, I have an insight on that. So imagine how many millions of humans must have said, I'm sitting in this traffic, and look what this pandemic situation did. Now we can just zoom out. You want to go out in traffic? You'll just zoom through on the interstate. So many people must have sent out that intention. Why am I sitting in this traffic? And the universe responded. So that's the listening mode. That is the grace in knowing that this pandemic is actually a response of the universe in what all the humans, the millions of humans, have asked for. They want quiet. Millions of humans, billions of humans must have said, I want quiet. I want peace. I don't want to be stuck in traffic. I want to work from home. I want to have the peace of working from home. I don't want to be in this rat race. And it has responded. And that's like Amazing Grace, the song Amazing Grace. On this
yeah,
point, let's disconnect so that I can go clean my kitchen, Parker.
there's two thumbs up for that. It was lovely seeing everybody here today.
Thank
Here,
you.
I'll do a little ring before I end it.
Grateful for the support. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. You want to ring?
I did. Ring it again? Oh, I'd love to. Of course. Let's see. There we go. Look at this beautiful bowl.
Love y'all. Bye.
Bye, everybody.